Good morning, everybody. Morning, Julia and Fiona.
Hi.
Morning.
Hi. Hi.
Welcome, everybody. This is, we are the Lockdown Art Group. And I'd like to just say a little bit about how we all met. And then we're going to have a conversation about lockdown and how that's impacted on us individually and our artwork. So we originally met face to face, didn't we? In Sherwood, and it was a face-to-face art class, and now we're working online using Zoom, and the way that we share our creative developments and process is on WhatsApp. And it's been a really interesting journey looking at the sort of creative development of work. So I'm just wondering what the benefits are of working online, of being connected like this, as opposed to face to face. And I wanted to sort of ask that question to the group, really. And I wondered if, Fiona, you'd start the ball rolling on that one. So what are your benefits? What benefits do you perceive from working on Zoom as opposed to face to face?
I think I do love working face to face because I like the contact. But what's been good for me about Zoom is I just retired at the start of the second lockdown, which meant I had more time to concentrate on drawing and painting. And it would have been easy with the situation I'm in, with a lot of building work going on my house, to have kind of neglected it completely and think, well, I just can't do it. And I think the Zoom has meant setting up a little studio every single week on my dining room table, in amongst all the clutter and the brick dust and everything, like a pop-up studio. The way I can describe it. And I have a sacred place where all the sketchbooks and brushes and everything live, and I get them out. And because the Zoom is very concentrated, and I know Anne and Julia's work, and so the three of us can concentrate, it's meant a great deal. It's like a little art sanctuary. It's not so easy doing it during the week other than that, but I can usually make sure that on a Monday morning, that's what happens, no matter what they're doing, what they're banging about in the house. And I think it's been a good vehicle for retiring as well, from going from a very intense work to something that can be very intense sometimes. I've had very intense emotions during lockdown, and expressing those in some form of media, art media, has been very important. So it's allowed something to continue for me that I thought would be lost. So I'm very glad that we've been able to do it online, even though I thought it would be really weird. And it is a little bit weird, but we can see each other's images and we use WhatsApp. So, yeah.
What about you, Julia? What are the benefits for you?
I think I found the Zoom experience a lot more unifying for the group than meeting face to face, simply because everything is done on one screen. And then when we put things on WhatsApp as well, we're all sharing the same thing, and so we can all see each other's work very clearly, and we're all discussing it at the same time on the Zoom meeting, And so I'm a lot more aware of what Anne and Fiona are doing in their work and the comments that Jeannie's made on them. So I'm learning at the same time as they are. So it's like having three teaching sessions in one, my own and theirs. And so you get 3 times the amount of input into what you're doing, which is very good. And with lockdown, I found that it's helped me concentrate and sort of burrow down more into what I'm doing rather than flit from one new thing to another, because when you're stuck at home there aren't that many new things available. So I did a series of pictures of the back garden, which could have got very boring, but because you're sort of concentrating on that, you're not looking at the actual things in the back garden, but what you can do with them stylistically, or from the point of view of composition, colour, different influences you can stick on it and make it sort of drill down more to your own style and what you want to say through that art, rather than through the subject that you're doing. So I think I've benefited from that quite a lot, because I wouldn't have bothered doing that normally. I'd have gone on to something new.
It's really interesting that, Julia, that you said that sort of, if you like, 4, because this is a group of 4, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
You know, that 4 or 3 voices, it's supporting one, or it's a group that supports each other, and I think that's a really good point. What about you, Anne?
Yes, I think what's come up in Fiona and Julia is concentration. That weirdly, the pandemic, there aren't many bonuses, but that is what's provided for me, because I can only do 1 or 2 things, and they're via Zoom. Otherwise, I was on my own in my house and garden. But it's been a really liberating sort of space where I actually interact with other people. Something really, really interesting, something I can really focus on. And time, that's because I'm not doing the other things, I had more time for working on my art, and there has been a distinct, well, change, and I hope it's an improvement, but certainly a change. And like Julia was saying, you know, you bring ideas from other people, ideas are suggested, and that has helped, because I've had time to think about that and take that forward. That's been helpful, really helpful. The thing as well about sharing with everyone, you can see people's work develop. It's not just your own. You can see other people moving forward, and you can borrow things as well. You know, get ideas from, oh yeah. I mean, Julia is much better at colour than I am. So, you know, that was really, really, really interesting to see. Yeah, yeah.
So basically, you're saying that the opportunity, if you like, that COVID's offered has given you the time, the space. It's like being on a residency, isn't it? Where you can kind of go book yourself 2 weeks away to develop your work. But you've got your own, if you like, domestic residencies going on.
Oh, just one, sorry. No, it's all right. Noise is off. Sorry about that. I've got bills as well. All right, fine.
Oh dear, I don't know. I just wanted to sort of ask you, you mentioned that you feel that your work's actually developed in a new direction since you've been experiencing lockdown, if you want to call it an experience. So I wondered if you'd each say something about what you feel has been one of the key developments in your creative work.
Well, I've found I'm much less bothered about an end result being something that I've already decided on before I started, if you see what I mean. I'm much more able, willing, enjoy, just seeing, using different techniques, what I'm less bothered, you know, about the process. I'm enjoying the process. That's the thing, and it's not so much the end result.
Is that the
I'd
same?
like the end result to be good, but it's the whole process of using new ways of watercolor or drawing or whatever, and chance, the randomness, you know, those sorts of particularly the exercises we've had in the class. That's been the real change for me.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I've found that I've managed to loosen up a bit in my style and also accept more accidental things. Before I was quite a realistic kind of copying artist, but now an element of fantasy has crept in, which I find quite liberating. So from the bottom of my garden you can see the sea, which you can't actually in some of my pictures, and I've put palm trees in my hallway, and it makes you sort of accept accidentals that happen in your work, and you don't bother so much about getting every little leaf right.
Yeah.
It just offers you an escape from what's in front of you.
I think that's right, and I was thinking that's a good description, I think, of what's happened for all three of us, that we are freer about what comes out, you know, without sort of having to decide it exactly beforehand. And I think I've been playing much more with making abstract images and then seeing what comes out of those for me, and maybe turning them into something that's a little bit more defined or not. But I'm enjoying that process. I was saying earlier that it's a bit like looking at clouds and seeing pictures in the clouds, you know, when you stare at the sky. It's a little bit like that for me. It's like dreaming a bit with the picture, just dreaming. And that's quite like we've been concentrating on gardens because that's what we've got out of our windows and with lockdown. But because my garden is a new piece of ground that I haven't gardened in before, so I'm in the process of redesigning it, and so I'm doing a lot of dreaming about the garden, just daydreaming. And I think the work with colour and drawing has helped me, they're combined now. I'm not seeing them as separate, you know. As I draw things or paint things, I start to imagine what I do want there, and it might be the sea. Who knows? There might have to be an artificial sea somewhere in there. So I think we've had a lot of fun, actually.
Oh yes,
We've had a lot of fun.
Certainly brighten the day or the week.
Yeah. And it takes you through the week, doesn't it? Because we've had ideas, tasks, suggestions. Oh, I'll get to grips with that, and it has been a really coping with the pandemic without it would have been more difficult for me. I mean, I'm a great reader and all the rest of it, but this is a much more this is a social interaction, which is really meaningful because we're all working together, aren't we, on some shared endeavor, really.
And I think artwork is so it can be so emotional, you know. I look back at images I did in the first lockdown, and I think in that first lockdown there was a lot of death and loss, and particularly in our family because my son died. But I've done quite a lot of images of Seth, just quick sketches, and that's helped a lot with not being able to see our grandchildren or our daughter-in-law because she's had to shield with cancer and things. So it's a way of expressing something, but also having it look back at you
Mhm,
Mm.
mhm.
And it's possible to see perspective, like you were saying, Anne, when you looked in your sketchbooks and you could see the difference between your
Yes.
earlier life models
Yeah.
and now. And I look at those sketchbooks from the first lockdown and I think, oh yeah, we were trying to sell our house and we were in a major bereavement with no funeral and all of those sorts of things. But it's like they're captured in the pages of that little sketchbook, which was a tiny one. You know, it was very hard for me to be constrained within, I don't know what it was, 3 inches by 5 inches or so. It was tiny. I learned a lot about working small
Mhm.
because my natural inclination is to work large.
Mm.
So that was interesting in itself, you know, and to know, oh, you can do that. You could put a little sketchbook in your pocket and it is enough, you know, you can get images.
Mm.
Can I ask all three of you a question? If you were going to advise anyone watching this little video to get involved in art, what would you think the key benefits are? And I think you've already said it, but can you sum it up in a word? What is it? What benefits belonging to an art group would another individual get?
Inspiration, I think. You know,
Mm.
if you're sitting on your own with a blank piece of paper, you just don't do it, or it's very difficult to get going. Whereas if you're with a group and you've got an incentive to put something on the paper and share it.
Mm. Yeah.
I think that's right. And I think it's also about looking.
Mhm.
That we share our visions of things, what we see.
Mhm. Mm.
And then when I look at Anne and Julia's work, I see more things. And then I look at my work and I see more things because I've looked at their work. So it's not separate, I guess. That's what I feel. So it helps you look. And I really believe that everybody can draw. They just have to be taught. Because you teach as well, we can do it. But I really believe that everybody can learn to draw. I feel very strongly about that.
I think as well, if you're in an art group, well, it suits you and all the rest of it, you can move forward with a degree of confidence that's very difficult to sustain when you work on your own in complete isolation, because there's no feedback. I'm not necessarily just referring to feedback from the tutor. It's that feedback that Fiona and Julie were saying. It's about sharing, because it is feedback, isn't it, really?
Yeah,
You're thinking
it
about
is.
what they've done, but you're also thinking about what you've done. Oh, I can, you know, two sort of idea streams come together. And I think it's probably essential, but I'm sure there are some artists who work in complete isolation.
I think that's true, but I think that the benefits I think that I can see in the group is that you support each other both emotionally and creatively, very much creatively. And I think I was saying earlier that I've had an odd benefit because I too am in lockdown. But the benefits that I've got from each of you are immeasurable, really, because it means that, you know, I can think about the creative processes that you're engaged in, and oddly enough, it spills over in my work.
Yeah.
So it's not a one-way street.
No.
So I've got a question to ask you, and I just wondered if alongside this video you'd choose one item of work to that I can send to Open Studios to share with the public. Do you think we can do that? That would be lovely.
Yeah.
Use it and then email, and then I'll pass it on to Open Studios. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for doing this. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege.
Yes,
And
been a pleasure for us, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
so I'm going to say cheerio to Open Studios people, and I'm going to stop the video now.